Meanwhile, a House panel is scheduled to hold a hearing just next week on combating anti-Semitism in college workplaces. You may recall that during the anti-Israel protests that took over college campuses in the spring, several janitors at one point were actually trapped inside of Hamilton Hall at Columbia University. Lawmakers say employers at schools across the country have a legal duty to protect staff, to protect faculty from discrimination and harassment. California Congressman Kevin Kiley is the chairman of the House Subcommittee on Workforce Protections, and he's heading up that hearing, which is slated for Wednesday. Congressman, thank you for giving us a little bit of your time on this Saturday. We have extensively covered the protests that roiled across campuses all across the nation leading up to the end of the school year, where there were incidents of violence and buildings being taken over and violence against police. But throughout the course of the last two semesters since October 7th, Jewish students across America have expressed repeatedly at multiple universities a feeling of fear. But your subcommittee is going to talk about something that we haven't heard quite as much about, and that's the experience of the people that work at universities that are facing anti-Semitism. What is important about this, and why is it important to focus on also these people, the employees, the faculty?
Well, for many of these folks, it's been an absolute nightmare working at a university campus since October 7th. And so our committee, the Education and the Workforce Committee, has been doing a wide-ranging investigation into the horrifying anti-Semitism and lawlessness that has overtaken many American university campuses. And we have focused so far on how these universities are not protecting Jewish students, but also faculty members have been targeted, have been subject to harassment. And under Title VII of the civil rights laws, universities have an obligation to protect the civil rights of their employees. And, it's all the more unacceptable when you see university administrations that are catering to the anti-Semitic elements on their faculties. We've seen that time and time again. We've seen faculty members who have promoted anti-Semitism, who have, associated themselves with Hamas, who have celebrated terrorism, and then nothing happens to those faculty members. There's no consequence. Meanwhile, faculty members who are being targeted based upon their heritage don't receive the protections they're entitled to under the law.
Yeah, as we've been covering this very extensively, some of your colleagues, Republican colleagues, have also been investigating all of the fear that the Jewish students have faced, but also the experiences of these faculties. But there are faculty members that are also accused of contributing to an unfriendly atmosphere for Jewish students, for fellow faculty. There was a letter sent from the Committee on Education and the Workforce that highlighted multiple MIT and faculty staff that had made anti-Semitic remarks, and pointing to one particular postdoctoral associate. There were three Columbia deans were just placed on leave over disparaging text exchanges. So what can be done if faculty members are also part of the problem, in essence?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think faculty members are a big part of the problem. By and large, we've seen examples of faculty members that cancel classes so the students can take part in the protest. We've seen faculty members go and join the encampments, link arms, stopping the police from doing their job and enforcing the law, and then there's no consequence for them. We've asked this of the university presidents. We've asked this, in fact, I asked it of Secretary of Education Miguel Cardona, and they are so fearful of offending faculty members, even faculty members who are acting in anti-Semitic ways. It really reveals a lot about how things have gotten so broken on our university campuses. And so I think that if we're going to solve the problems that ail American higher education, we need to look at how these faculties have become so ideologically monolithic and have been warped by really perverse ideologies. Now, I will say, though, the good news is we are starting to see some reform. Harvard and MIT have just announced that they're no longer going to require these forced diversity statements where new faculty members have to sort of recite the latest dogma of DEI. Harvard just announced that it's going to adopt a position of institutional neutrality and no longer wade into taking political stances. So I think that's a sign that the problems that this crisis of anti-Semitism have really exposed for the world to see are at least starting to be addressed.
Yeah, and the Jewish community is monitoring all of these sorts of developments as well. There are parents that are deciding where they're going to send their kids to college. college and where they're going to be willing to spend their money at some of these elite institutions. There's a report card that came out from the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, where they have either upgraded or downgraded certain universities and elite universities at that. On handling of anti-Semitism, downgraded Northwestern, UCLA, the University of Michigan, upgrading universities like the University of Central Florida, Rice University, and Stanford University. Your thoughts on how that's being communicated to a broader community that's trying to figure out where to get educated?
Yeah, that's a great question. When the Harvard president was before our committee, I asked her, could you look at the parents of a Jewish student and a prospective Jewish student in the eye and tell them their son or daughter would feel safe and welcome on your campus? And she couldn't say that. And so I do talk to a lot of parents and students who have second thoughts about where they're going to go to college based upon the horrifying scenes that we're seeing at universities. But, it's interesting. You just gave a few examples of UCLA, for example, that got an F. And we all remember the just unbelievable scenes we saw at UCLA. And we had the chancellor of UCLA in to testify a couple weeks ago. The irony of it all is that he was nearly subject to a vote of no confidence by his faculty that almost passed. But the vote of no confidence was not for the anti-Semitism that was allowed to happen, not for the encampment that was allowed to grow week for weeks on end unchecked. Rather, the faculty almost did a vote of no confidence because he actually did something about it eventually and brought the police in to enforce the law. So it just goes to show you how badly reform is needed in American higher education when we have these campuses that are largely controlled by faculty and have presidents who cater to faculty that have been warped by these just truly perverse and retrograde ideologies.
Yeah, there are a great number of universities that are facing fallout because of all of this, whether it's the reduction in donor money coming in or major parties pulling out of fellowships, but also at Emerson in Boston, Emerson College, right in downtown Boston. They are now reporting that there is a big drop in student enrollment. And there was this information that was put out by the president and also by staff there at Emerson, talking about the size of their projected incoming first-year class for fall 24 is significantly below what we had hoped. We attribute this reduction to multiple factors, including negative press and social media generated from demonstrations and arrests. We will need to eliminate some staff positions, both vacant and filled, and potentially reduce some faculty positions, some staff positions, faculty positions. What do you make of that fallout that's occurring at these universities and colleges across the country?
Well, I think in some cases it's well-deserved, and it shows you the vast disconnect between university culture and the broader American culture. I mean, 99.99% of Americans have no sympathy whatsoever for anti-Semitism or for Hamas or for terrorism, and yet these truly, reprehensible elements are vastly overrepresented on university campuses and hold significant sway and have caused this, I think, decline of American higher education, or even worse than that. It's sort of flipped the very purpose of our institution of higher learning on its head, and it's weakening our country as a result. And so I think that, this is a moment where we need to tackle this horrifying issue of anti-Semitism and make sure that students feel safe and faculty feel safe on campuses. But we also need to think sort of anew about the future of higher education in this country and how we can reform universities so that they can once again become national assets, not national liabilities.
Anti-Semitism has no place in America, and certainly not in America's universities and colleges. Congressman Kevin Kiley, thank you so much for talking to us on this Saturday afternoon. We really appreciate it.
You bet. Thanks for having me.